Even before I left Croatia the first time, I wanted to go back. I hadn't even gotten home yet, but I didn't want to go here. I wanted to be out here on a beautiful boat, sailing the sea like I saw the rich people do, but I couldn't afford that. It was just going to have to be a dream.
A couple of months later,
when I got back home, I told a friend about my wonderful trip to Croatia. Then I looked up an internet site that I just picked out at random. It was called Cruise Croatia. And I showed her the pictures of sailing on a beautiful ship in the blue waters surrounding Croatia. She saw that, took one look, and said, I want to go.
Checking further into the website, we learned that the cost was only $1,299. Yay! It took us only 30 minutes to sign up for our stateroom. For a 7-day cruise? That's unbelievable. That was only 3 years ago in 2022. The cruise started off in Dubrovnik. Then we moved up the Dalmatian coast to Slano and Ston. The island of Korčula was next. By the way, Croatia has over 1,200 islands in the Aegean Sea. Start up those engines. Let's make our way up to Hvar. It's a short little jaunt over to Vis. The island of Trogir is next. Then we come to the last stop of Split. I came down with the COVID virus only 5 days before leaving on the airplane to Croatia. I got a quick prescription for Paxlovid. Now all I needed would be a mask. If it were only this kind of mask. In 2022, there was still a lot of paperwork to fill out to get to and from international countries. Thank goodness it's now easier to travel from place to place.
I've had so much fun and nostalgia creating this video that I want to go back again. All I have to do is find a friend who'll come along with me. I wonder if I can drag my daughter along.
As you might guess, this is not one of my nutrition videos. However, it is a form of nutrition for us to walk in nature and breathe in the fresh sea air. This is Dubrovnik as seen from the Pilegate Bridge. We booked a really fun kayak excursion with Get Your Guide during our free time while we were in Dubrovnik. You can wander all day through the drop-dead awesome Plitvice Lakes National Park in Croatia. The mini cruise ship, Phoenix 72, went from island to island, and of course, we got off the boat and explored the islands. But before we explore the islands, let's explore the amazing Phoenix 72. Our below-deck cabin, because it was cheaper, was still beautiful with a port window. I feel the cabins above us were still beautiful, but not that much. This is the lovely dining room for the 36 passengers. Yes, you heard me right. There are only 18 cabins on this mini cruise ship. It was super pleasant when they set up lunch for us on the outside deck. Ah, yes, the enticing spa. This was one of my favorite spots. I just loved soaking in the sun. All right, let's start by boarding our cruise ship in Dubrovnik. We get on board, but then we get off again for an excursion of the city. All the excursions are free, so why not? To me, it seems like Dubrovnik is configured like a baseball hat. You have to walk down steps to get into the city unless you're coming in from the port. Dubrovnik is definitely not wheelchair friendly. There are no elevators down into the town. As you can see, there are steps and more steps. It's just the step capital of the world. If you love to do step exercise, this is the place for you. The first time I went to Dubrovnik, we arrived at our Airbnb in a rainstorm. But look how enchanting it is, even in the rain. We decided to spend a few extra days before the cruise to enjoy Dubrovnik. The second time, I selected the center of town for our Airbnb. Check this out. This was the Dubrovnik up-close view from our Airbnb window. I love listening to all the clatter of the restaurant noises late into the night. Here's to show you that people do stupid things everywhere. Do you see those girls down there on the rocks? They are both wearing flip-flops. One is holding a drink in a champagne glass and the other one is snapping pictures. It's slippery down there. Instead, I recommend climbing the wall that surrounds the city of Dubrovnik. There's a small charge, but it's really worth it because you can see the city from all angles. It's one of the most inclusive city walls in all of Europe. We asked our tour guide for the best restaurant where we could get fish. This one had the most delicious calamari that I've ever had. I couldn't wait to take my friend to the restaurant that has the best pizza ever. It's located at the entrance to Pile Gate. It's called Dubravka, and don't forget to ask for a side order of Croatian blitva. I'd return to Dubrovnik just to eat here. The patio of this restaurant gives you a view of both Dubrovnik Wall and Fort Lovrijenac. Try standing on this waterspout to have a lover's wish come true. There you go, just a small glimpse of beautiful Dubrovnik. So, how do you like Croatia so far? Do a happy click and subscribe. The highlight of Slano was an excursion to the oyster farm. They're bringing up one of the oyster traps for us. They will prepare the oysters and then serve them to us fresh.
That's Italian. Thinking. Next time I'll bring my own bowl. I'll give you the bowl, give me the juice.
Do you also serve them in a flat side of the oysters, of the shells?
Well, we do actually up in north. We serve them in the bottom shell, not the top one, because it's got more water.
In between islands, we stopped in a cove to swim and play in the beautiful blue-green waters of the Adriatic Sea. How convenient is this? A swim deck opens up in the aft of the boat where we can just easily get into the water. We looked up the name of this boat that was our neighbor and found out that you could rent it for several $1,000s. Korčula is a gorgeous island with a rich history. Actually, it's my favorite of all the islands. It was inhabited as early as 6,000 to 8,000 years ago. The Greeks, the Turks, the Ottomans, the Austrians, the French, and Italians have all had a hand at taking charge of this island. Marco Polo walked on these very same steps. I grabbed a few shots as our guide moved us on a tour through the city. I couldn't resist capturing this shot. I remember having a very strong urge to come back to Korčula, not just for the history, but for the delicious pizza in the restaurant that's right on the edge of the water. I don't eat this kind of pizza, but I tried to sample the delicious vegetarian pizza everywhere I went in Croatia. This is the routine when you come to a new island. There are lots of boats that arrive, but there aren't enough parking stalls, so we jump from boat to boat. Actually, there's a little ramp between each boat. There was some kind of celebration for the locals going on in Hvar. Part of the excursion was to a winery in Hvar. Since I don't drink, I focused on the charcuterie, which was delicious. The next stop was to the lavender field. They're not so active anymore, but they're beautiful. Our next port was Vis. Vis is a lovely island, but not much going on. Maybe that's why they filmed parts of Mamma Mia too there. There was an old cemetery behind this wall that was somewhat interesting. Although I couldn't find any evidence of Mamma Mia, this placard caught my eye. St. Jerome Monastery was built on the foundations of a Roman theater. Trojir was founded in the 3rd century BC by a colony of Greeks. There's nothing like local bread. Then it was developed into a major port by the Romans. I was fascinated by the giant capers that grew hanging around wild on buildings everywhere. The last stop of the cruise was Split, another fascinating city of Croatia. Part of that component was a bus trip to Krka National Park. I'll let it speak for itself. Split or Dubrovnik? Split or Dubrovnik? Split or Dubrovnik? I don't know which is best. Would it be fair to say I'm just split? Oh, I'm so sorry about that one. One of the main attractions is the big, thick wall that once surrounded Diocletian's palace. Diocletian was the only Roman emperor who retired peacefully. Others were either poisoned or snuffed out in some other way. However, I'm not sure how peaceful he was after he died because his hobby was to torture and slaughter Christians. But now we can get a small glance of how he lived. After he died, the villagers moved in and took over all the living quarters, plus building new ones in every inch they could find. The first time I went to Split, we stayed in an Airbnb, the ones with the green shutters at the top. It was built right into Diocletian's wall, and this is what we looked out on. How about this, our Airbnb breakfast? They sent us to eat at the cafe downstairs. Here's the other side of the wall where we stayed. Be sure to grab a tour if you're ever in Split. It's such an interesting city. On the right side of this building is a pile of rocks. That's where the vomitorium was. The guide might tell you that that's where they went to throw up so they could eat more, but that's not true. Really a myth. However, it looks like he did gain a bit of weight after a few years. I'm going to tell you an amazing story that's really true. Notice the upper level and lower levels. The village squatters did not want to go outside the safety of the palace wall to poop and to pee. So someone came up with a great idea. It must have been the condo association to bore a hole in the upper floor and use it as a bathroom to drop poop into the basement. Over the years, it completely filled up, and it wasn't until just recently that it was totally cleaned out, and it looks like this now. Our young guide said it still smelled when she was a girl. Now it's busy with places where you can buy souvenirs. As I said, don't forget to get a tour guide. Return to Croatia for a third time? Absolutely. I'd go back just for the food alone, especially to the bakery in Split that has the most delicious poppy seed rolls. It's at the upper end of the open market. You can't miss it.
So with that yummy ending, I'll say eat healthy, travel happy. Until next time, bye-bye.